flies when you're having fun, Rachel.
It is the 4th.
Aren't you having a good time?
I am.
You're 4 out of 5 in.
Hi, welcome back. We're the Book Mavens. I'm Rachel. This is Amanda. And we are on our 4th book of our Mystery March series. And we will be talking today about Sherry Thomas's A Study in Scarlet Women, which is the first book in her Lady Sherlock series.
If you're not familiar with the Sherlock Holmes premise at this point, I don't know how you
Where
did
have
that.
you been?
Yeah, I don't know how you did that, but Google it. So, of course, like any spinoff with Sherlock Holmes, there has to be an incorporation of the characters. So, it starts with, like, Sherlock Holmes is connected to the detective via letters, right? He's never actually met Sherlock. That's the essential premise as you start to investigate your first crime, right? Mm-hmm. Then we meet the Holmes family, which is a family of daughters.
All right, so we have 4 sisters. We got Henrietta, the oldest, who is married. She, went about it in a very logical way, made sure she was going to be well taken care of.
Takes after the mom.
Yeah, went and toured them just to make sure. I respect that.
Respect the little mercenary.
Well, I mean, for the time period, hey. The whole thing is about not having options and how you go about trying to shape your world the way you want it in a world that's not going to give that to you. And I think that's the big push that we see with Charlotte Holmes, is that she's trying to reshape her life so she can find happiness.
She wants control over her choices.
And I mean, like, I get that. I would hate this, like, just to be so out of control over everything. And this idea of, like, the way Charlotte works things out is very mathematical, and she looks at percentages in terms of where she thinks that people have marriages built on love and the ones that are convenience marriages, and she doesn't want that for herself. She wants to have that control. She just doesn't trust in the system to where marriage is something that's going to give her happiness. And I get that. If I don't know if I would go about it the way that Charlotte does, trying to get it, but
let me say her calculations were off.
Yeah.
We'll leave that there for now before we get in the thing.
Yeah.
So then you have Olivia, who is the closest sister. So Charlotte and Olivia are the two that are the large focus of the book.
Apart,
yeah. And then Bernadine is the youngest, and she has some kind of disability that means she has to be basically cared for all the time. Charlotte is definitely,
she's our protagonist.
She's the protagonist, obviously, guys. Sherlock. Come on, guys.
I mean, the author takes her time in terms of really setting that up, where that's where it's going.
Too long for me.
Almost,
but I got there.
Almost a little long.
I was like, okay.
But this suffers from the first book in a series syndrome. I mean, there's a lot of setup, on top of also trying to have a mystery, kind of a classic Sherlock Holmes situation. So it's a lot of introduction to characters. They're going to be long-standing characters. Right. So we spend a lot of time on character exposition and setting up this world. So, which is fine. I mean, like, it's not a long book. It gets to the point, but I mean, there are periods of time where you're like, okay, we want to get back to the main.
We got it.
To the
Charlotte Sherlock. Let's go.
Yeah.
Like, come on.
But sure.
They did spend a lot on the beginning. Okay. If you're gonna read this for yourself, I pause now. Okay, so basically,
wait. Before we do that, I think a fair comparison, like, if you're looking to pick up something like this, is if you were like a fan of like Enola Holmes. So this idea, of like trying to take more of a feminist perspective, approach to solving mysteries and crime. If you really like that, and see, I really liked the whole Enola Holmes. This is going to be something that you'd like.
Oh yeah, right up your alley.
Yeah, just trying to set it up. So if this is something that you're interested in, please pause and don't watch the spoilers, because if you do like that, then you should pick this up and check it out. Sorry.
So spoilers. A Study in Scarlet Women. Charlotte is neuroatypical for sure, 100%. Although Holmes is the Sherlock Holmes character in general is, but she has made this decision that the way to get control of her life is to let herself be ruined by society standards. So she basically sets it up so she can get caught in the act with a man.
It doesn't go how she wanted it to go.
Miscalculated. Which she realizes later. But it
was an impulsive decision, because initially it was about that she made a deal with her father, and her father reneges on the decision, and that's what pushes her into this position to be ruined.
Let's just say spontaneous. She took. It's not like she did this in the moment. She set this up. Like, so there were at least days, because her dad, if not longer.
her father.
That's true. That was the precipice that like pushed her into it, is because so it was a little bit of punishment for her father for not letting her be educated. She felt like she had done her part. She'd really put herself out there. And I love the way she talks about social interaction, because it talks a lot about her childhood, and like she basically learns appropriate social interaction, and then she makes calculated risks. She's like, okay, this is when I'm supposed to say this, and they look upset, now I should do this.
It's like, incredibly studied, which is really interesting. I love how she talks about this idea of what percentages in terms of where she finds herself physically attractive, and how to measure and control that, because she loves food. And so I really
character trait that I loved.
Yeah, I mean, like really loves to eat, and this idea of feeling satisfied with food and where her line has to be. Like she really talks about counting her
1.4 to 1.6 chins is optimal for her. That's what she said.
Yeah. Which I think is hilarious. It was so...
Someone even said to her, she's like, you sound like you've done extensive thinking and studying about this.
And she has.
I have. So, I love it. And I love that foible for her, like that very human connected weakness. Because, in traditional Sherlock Holmes, either the original series or whatever, Holmes is always this very unrelatable figure, like across the board, like nobody can. So I really liked that very humanizing element for her, that she gets a lot of joy from food, which, girl, I get you. I get it. But then she does have
also about that aspect of control. Yeah. She's going to control everything about this.
She has a very, in that very unique way of looking at the world. So then once she runs away from her family's home, there's a long time setting her up, and things are harder than she thought.
They said they're just what they're gonna do after she ruins herself is that they're gonna send her off to some like country home where for her to go and rot. She's like, no,
nah, I got it.
No.
So she finds it much harder to get work than she thought. Everything ends up being harder. And then she meets the Watson character, which I love the way they did the Watson
they set up everybody in here. Like this whole like supportive cast you have for this overall story was done really well.
Loved the unique elements, right? I really loved that. And I thought there were a lot of unique ways. Like, so Olivia is not the Mycroft character. That's actually Lord Ingram's brother, is the Mycroft character, who's connected to Charlotte that way. Lord Ingram is like her closest friend, really. Her most equal, I would say. And then the Watson character, because it's a woman, her husband was the doctor who was in the military, and he was killed tragically. I don't
know.
Well, hold that. We'll see. But
there's a mystery
not
there.
In this book. Yeah. But she's an actress, so she brings a lot of. So the whole thing with like the Watson Sherlock dynamic is that Watson has skills that Sherlock doesn't have or that needs, and so that's how they bring it in. She's an actress. She helps her set up this like fake office where they pretend Sherlock is sick, and then they meet with clients. Like Watson, that relationship and dynamic was really well done, I felt.
She's also a financial backer, and so it also helps set up this whole like just business, which is just perfect for Charlotte because she wants to be self-sufficient. So Mrs. Watson really helps her set up that entire system for her to be more self-sufficient, and this great friendship blooms between these women, and it's just really nice to read. And then the tie-in of Olivia being the one who's going to sit down and actually write the Sherlock Holmes stories is just really fascinating at the end. So everybody kind of comes together, and
they kept the core tenet of the story, but I really liked the way they divided out those elements in a way that is different, to be honest, than a lot of the other ones I've read.
It's a fun take.
Yeah, it's a fun take on it, and I really liked it. So in terms of the mystery itself, right, the mystery of this episode, I will say they spent a long time in the beginning, almost a little bit too much for me, with the like I really feel it's like getting Charlotte to Watson, right? That took for me way longer.
And the mystery was very much separated because you're talking about multiple victims. It took a while for you to start seeing that there are some intersecting.
But once we I was in. Yeah, it was.
But it was dark though.
Oh, yeah,
the mystery and everything, like the death, like.
It took a dark turn there at the end. When when the pieces all fell together.
I wasn't expecting that.
And they solved it, we were like, oh.
Yeah, I don't want to say too much. I don't really think it's necessary for us to get into that. Okay. But It had more of the ick factor than I was expecting.
But I will say this.
Mature.
One of the critiques that you have had in the past books is that you were not able to pull the clues out and figure it out. Did you feel like you got that in this mystery? Or were you more wrapped up in the character-driven nature of it?
I think that there was a good balance for me in this one. I felt that, I mean, there is exposition, but the way that they do with the exposition in this book as opposed to others is that you get exposition periodically. It's not just this huge dump at the end. I feel like as the threads come together, you're like, okay, and you're following along and you're able to piece it together alongside. I don't feel like there was enough for me to be able to kind of predict where it's going, but there was enough where I was like, okay, I could absolutely see how these clues are coming together and eliminating other options. They did that very well. And the exposition came in increments. They didn't wait for this big dump at the end, which I really appreciated. I need more things to keep me going. I don't like waiting to the very end of the book to have everything come together. I don't like that. Something I've learned about my mystery journey. So I like that there's more that they let a little line out as you read. And so it just keeps me invested and it keeps me interested in terms of how everything's going to come together. I really appreciated that.
So would you read more of these?
I would put this like in terms of comparing it with like with Mr. Churchill's secretary kind of deal. That's more cozy. There's more character development. I really like the atypical way that she thinks and processes information. I find that to be very enjoyable. I think it was a good crossover with the traditional Sherlock Holmes stories. And plus there's this whole relationship, this very complex relationship she has with Lord Ingram. And he's an interesting character. I love the way that he's described in here. He sounds super sexy, not gonna lie. Not gonna lie. But done in like this super cerebral kind of way. Did you pick up on that? Like
I also thought he was an old man for a good chunk of the book, and then I realized, oh wait, no he isn't. That was what I was picturing.
Yeah, like so Lord Ingram's like her childhood friend, and like he's the first one where she like kisses just to kind of like figure out this whole dynamic between men and women. She's kind of, he's kind of like used that way, but she really appreciates his mind and does see him as an equal. And it's just her approach. Let me say this,
what she likes best about him, like what she remembers from their childhood, is basically that they sat together in silence. Yeah. Like she was reading her book and he was doing his thing, and he's into archaeology. She really liked it. She's describing companionable silence. But that's my favorite part. That's the part about him. Like that's her fondest memories of them together is when they were not talking.
But no, she like has these conversations like Mrs. Watson really, I think it's Mrs. Watson that puts kind of like the pin in the head. Like there's something about Ingram. There's like this magnetism about him that kind of draws you in, that women would draw, because he's not described as being classically handsome. So I feel that. I'm like, ooh,
Rachel has a literary crush.
Because everything Charlotte describes about Ingram is super cerebral. So you don't you understand that she is attracted to his mind.
Yeah.
But there's also this idea that he has this magnetism that would appeal to other women that Charlotte doesn't focus on, but other women see. And I'm like, ooh, I just like that. I am very, I think that was just done really well. I am. Well, and it's just so funny. I mean, because there's like I said, there's this huge complex past between the two of them, and her approach to everything with Lord Ingram is that he's in this very unfavorable marriage, and she tried to warn him that this wasn't going to end well.
He didn't listen.
So he's in this very unhappy marriage, and she's like, dude, you could have made me your mistress. This would have solved all of our problems.
That's one of my other favorite lines, when he's
just very
he's basically articulating that everybody who loves you is mad at you right now because you just went off and you did this thing, and now there's a lot of repercussions, including for people that you didn't intend. But she's basically like, this all could have been solved if you just made me your mistress when I asked you.
And he's just
he's so flustered by it.
It's very.
I'm not gonna lie. As I was reading this book and listening to her things, and I was like, I'm pretty sure Rachel's gonna like this. And then we got to that part, and I was like, oh yeah, this one's gonna be a win for Rachel. She's gonna enjoy this.
Because if I'm gonna read something that's cozy, because this is a cozy. This is a kind of low stakes kind of deal.
I don't know, but let me say this. For me, it's not a cozy because it's a level.
These
up.
are like a cozy for me.
This is a level up for me because.
I mean, you have to think about it.
It is more complex. A cozy to me requires very little effort. right? That's kind of the
I
whole.
was saying cozies where I'm not going to be emotionally devastated by what's happening.
It's a
I'm not going to want to throw it out the window kind of deal.
But for me, this is a good book.
Yeah.
Right?
It is.
But it doesn't, I do have to think a little bit more because it's a higher quality mystery. Like for me, a cozy is something it's like watching a Hallmark movie. I don't have to actually put that much effort into it because I've seen it.
It's a half cozy.
Several hundred times.
It's
a cozy plus. Okay. I don't know. This might be where I would read this.
So maybe we would
we have different definitions of cozy.
No. So maybe it's a step up from Hallmark, which Hallmark is more like cable show, not a cable. What do we?
No, because I would see this. I can see
a
this
network movie cozy. This is more like a Stars level complexity. That's what I'm going to do. I don't watch enough. But Stars to know. I do.
Okay, this is Stars for you.
This is Stars for me.
This is a quality Netflix.
You would pay a little more to watch the show.
I'd go see this at the theater.
I don't know if I qualified it as theater experience.
I would.
But a premium channel experience. I like that. I think
interpret that, audience. So take that how you will.
Not HBO like Game of Thrones premium channel, but this is like a Stars level. See, if people know about them, they know what I'm talking about. This is if you know example. Stars is like Outlander, level, and where HBO was like Game of Thrones, big massive adventure, high fantasy. This is like Stars level.
Outlander. It doesn't matter. I'll learn. I thought that's what Outlander was supposed to be, this big epic.
It's not on that scale. Okay. It's about a family. The first two are because there's a big war, but and it's going to get bigger, but it's still the central story is small compared to something like Game of Thrones where we're talking about a whole multinational thing going on.
Sure.
This is a Stars level.
Either way.
That was a whole other.
We recommend it.
It was a whole other deal. But yeah.
I would recommend it. I thought it's been fun. In fact, I've already borrowed the next two from my friend who recommended it.
All right. You have to let me know on how things are going with Lord Ingram because that's where I'm invested.
Read it for yourself.
I will, but I need you to tell me that.
I'll let you know which books. I'll let you know which books you're going to be particularly excited about. How about that?
I'm interested, but once again, it comes down to these massive TBR piles.
Hey, are you saying, Rachel, that it's opportunity cost?
This is another palate cleanser. This would be a palate cleanser for me. If I'm reading something,
I'd binge these. In fact, that's what I'm planning to do.
Yeah, you could binge them.
This is a good binge for me. I think there's 6 of them out now,
fair.
Maybe 7, but I think there's 6 out. Yeah, these are going to be a binge for me, and I'm going to enjoy every minute of it.
I see going binging this after finishing a series or one that's an ongoing series where there's a big cliffhanger, and I'm mad, and that I would pick this up and then just massively read them, kind of what I did with that trilogy that I did halfway through 7.5 Deaths, where I really wanted to burn that book, seriously light it on fire because I was not enjoying that read. So I had to find something that I knew that
you need a win.
I needed a win. This would be I need a win. Yeah. Then I'm going to be satisfied. I know what to expect. The writing is good.
The characters are well developed.
Yeah.
It's good.
Yeah.
Good book. Next is Run, Rose, Run.
Well, you want to take us out?
No, you can take us out, but just know it's Dolly.
All right, yes. So our final book for our Mystery March series is Run, Rose, Run, and that is the James Patterson, Dolly Parton read.
It's actually Dolly Parton, James Patterson on the cover. I just want to throw it out
so
there.
she's got
which honestly is really throwing my mother. My mother is but he's the guy, the mystery guy. He's the no. I was
Dolly.
Mom, he's not dumb. It's Dolly. And you want to sell a book? You put Dolly Parton's name at the top.
There we go.
James Patterson. You ain't dumb.
Amanda has waited the entire series for this to be able to read this book, and she's very, very excited. Well, we look forward to seeing you next week.
Bye.
Bye.